At Villiera, we are Cap Classique specialists, so it's one of our major focus categories. We bought Villiera in '83 as a family. We were looking for a focus category to work with, and we met a champagne producer towards the end of '83, and he was prepared to offer technical know-how in return for a royalty to put us on the right track and prepare us to make one of the better sparkling wines in South Africa. I personally had the opportunity to go and work in Champagne for 3 vintages, and I've been back repeatedly since then. So we fast-tracked ourselves to becoming leaders in the Cap Classique category in South Africa. About 6 or 7 years ago, we ended up at the Taste of Cape Town, an event where we show the food and wine products of the Western Cape. We basically were back-to-back with a Nougat stand, and we had our Cap Classiques there, and we realized that these two products go really well together. And we were always looking for something to introduce into our tasting room as a special offer for tasters to come and enjoy. We tried to find the perfect Nougats to match 4 of our Cap Classiques. We basically started with tasting a bunch of different Nougats, and we've today settled on a company by the name of Roses, and they make special, unique Nougats which have real complex flavors. Because of what they include in the Nougat, they're not as sweet as you might think, and they go really well with even brut Cap Classique. We've now got a flight of 4 different Nougats with 4 of our different bubblies. The first, it's a French sparkling wine made in the south of France. One of the reasons why we ended up in the south of France was because we had this joint venture with a champagne producer, and he ended up selling his business in the Champagne area, and he went down to the south of France, and I used to continue visiting him there, and we discovered the beauty of that part of the world, and we ended up with a vineyard in the Côte de Roussillon, which is sandwiched between Limoux and Cava, which are 2 very important sparkling wine producing regions in the world. In our vineyards there, we have a variety called Macabeu, which is the same variety that they use in most of the Cavas, where they refer to it as Macabeo. So Macabeo or Macabeu is used in our Domaine Grier Brut. We also use Chardonnay, which basically brings the champagne element into the mix. So it's a bit of a champagne Cava type crossover. It basically has the more earthy nature of Cava and the finesse and fruitiness of Chardonnay. And then we include a little bit of Carignan as the red grape component, which brings acidity to the blend, but it also brings a fruity character to the wine. This spicy, fruity character is ideally suited to the Roses berry cherry Nougat, which is quite acidic in character. And the Domaine Grier Brut does have a freshness, a liveliness and a spiciness, and it goes really well with this Nougat. And there's also almond in the Nougat, which is a nut that gives quite a sort of a nutty character. The Grier Brut is fresh, it's got some spiciness, it's got some fruit, and there's a bit of a floral tone to it. And the cherry berry almond character of this honey Nougat is perfect with it. South Africa is really making a name for itself in the Cap Classique category. It's a growing category in South Africa. The wine that we started with in the early days, the very first year of production was 1984. We produced our Villiera Tradition. We call it tradition because it's made according to the traditional method, which is basically the method utilized in Champagne. And we went to the home of Champagne to actually discover the method and learn the detail involved in producing good quality Cap Classique. Cap Classique was actually a name that we coined in 1992 when we formed an association to drive this category. And before that, we used to call it Méthode Traditionnelle, and Villiera kept the name Tradition as the sub-brand. The Tradition, in our opinion, had to be a blend of red and white grapes, which is very traditional in Champagne. And we use Chardonnay about 60% and then 40% of Pinot Noir. The Tradition is a bubbly that has beautiful freshness, but it also has a delicate, yeasty, slightly creamy character. And this is paired with the Roses Nougat that contains a little bit of macadamia. So it's the macadamia nougat option. And the macadamia is less nutty in character, it's more creamy, and it's slightly sweeter in taste. So it goes very well with the Cap Classique in our range that probably has the sweeter sense of taste, although it's still a brut because of the fruit. So this is the nougat that we decided paired really well with the Tradition. And the Tradition is our most popular Cap Classique. Part of the reason for that is the affordability, but also it appeals to a wide sense of different tastes, and most people love it, and the brand is pretty recognized around the country. We're missing out a couple, and for anyone who is interested in the full range of our Cap Classiques, we also do a Brut Natural, which is a Cap Classique made with zero dosage, 100% from Chardonnay, and it's made without any additives except for the sugar yeast addition for the second fermentation in the bottle. The fact that we don't use additives or preservatives mean that we want to avoid adding dosage, which means it's extra brut, and because it's bone dry, it's very difficult to pair it with nougat, which obviously has honey sweetness in it, and that wouldn't really work. But then we also have a light Cap Classique we call Starlight, because Cap Classique is often associated with the stars. People talk about drinking the stars, and you drink it under the stars, and you often see these celebrities or stars drink it. So it's very connected to sparkling wine, and the label reflects the facets of a diamond, because diamonds are like stars in the sky. So we have our Starlight, which is also a healthier option. It has lower kilojoules, it has a lower alcohol level, and there's a growing demand for bubblies like that as well. So that brings us to the next bubbly that we're pairing a nougat with. We've gone back to an almond-based nougat because the Munro Brut is our prestige cuvee. It's a bubbly that utilizes a couple of our best blocks. We make a bit of a selection to ensure that we have the best components that are brought together to make the best sparkling wine in our range. And we're using about 65% Chardonnay and about 30% Pinot Noir and about 5% Pinot Meunier. So there's a classic mix of the three Champagne varieties. Now the Chardonnay component is a very important part of the blend, because Chardonnay does have the best ability to mature for longer. And so when you're selling a bubbly that's 6 or 7 years old, like our Munro Brut is, at the moment we're on 2014, about to switch to 2015 this year. But the 2014 Munro Brut was 6 years on the yeast, and it's been on the cork for over a year. And it's basically a wine that has reached perfect maturity. Part of the technique that we use to get extra complexity into our Munro Brut is to ferment half the Chardonnay component, which means about 30% of the total blend, in barrels. And these are used barrels. We're not looking for any kind of new wood character. We're looking for the extra evolution and complexity that you get from aging in a barrel, and the extra yeast contact that you have in a barrel. And then we do a bit of buttonnage in the barrels to keep the yeast in suspension in the wine, to give that component a more rich, creamy, yeasty character. And then we blend that component with more Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and a bit of Pinot Meunier, and we bottle the wine with yeast and sugar and take it to our cold store for second fermentation in the bottle. After about 6 weeks, the 6 bars of pressure will have been produced, The character comes from maturation on the yeast in the bottle, and that's a 6-year period. So we've got this beautifully rich Munro Brut, which has a powerful yeast extract-like character, but there's fruit, there's liveliness, there's a bit of acidity, and it goes really well with the almond-based nougat. The almonds also give that sort of slight marzipan character, which you pick up in the Munro Brut as well. Last Cap Classique in the bubbly nougat pairing at Villiera is our Villiera Tradition Brut Rosé, which is a rosé version of Cap Classique. And rosé is a growing category in South Africa, especially in the Cap Classique category. The color is an important element of good rosé, and we go for a nice pale salmon color. The Roses goji berry rooibos tea nougat has a nice matching color, so there's an appeal on the color side. Rosé also has a little bit more fruitiness because of the very small amount of red wine that you have to introduce to get you the rosé color. And in fact, there are two ways of getting the rosé color. One is to blend in a little bit of red wine, and the other is to allow some skin contact. So most Cap Classique or champagne rosés, for that matter, are made by blending in a portion of red, because you have much more control that way. But by bringing the red into the blend, you bring more fruit. So it makes sense that you need to find a slightly fruitier nougat, and we've done that with this Roses nougat that has a bit of goji berry in it. There's also the almond and the rooibos tea. Those characters you can sort of find in the wine. So the Tradition Rosé is also sold relatively young and fresh. It's on the yeast for about 18 months, and then it's got this little bit of fruit. It's a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and some Pinotage. And the Pinotage adds a bit of unique South African flavor to the wine. It combines perfectly with the almond, rooibos tea, and goji berry Roses nougat. So with this presentation of sparkling wines and nougats, we've introduced you to some of South Africa's favorite Cap Classiques, as well as a really beautiful French traditional method sparkling wine, which is made by us in the south of France, as well as a range of nougats which come from Roses, and they have purpose-made these nougats for us. And we think this offers a great combo. We hope that anyone who tries it enjoys it.